Welcome to the AI and Software Report, a leading information source on AI and software companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Manos Koukoumidis, co-founder and CEO of Oumi, an open AI platform helping enterprises build specialized models they can own and control. Oumi is designed for organizations that want to move beyond renting generic foundation models, giving teams a way to evaluate model performance, create training data, train specialized models, and continue improving them around their own business needs. Before founding Oumi, Manos led major generative AI efforts at Google Cloud, including the work that became Palm and later Gemini. His background also includes roles at Meta and Microsoft, along with research experience at Princeton and MIT. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Manos, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Very interested to dive into Oumi and kind of the unique approach you're taking to AI. In July, we conducted a speaker panel in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, focused on artificial intelligence. And one of the comments made was when they're deploying AI or using AI tools within their companies, this was coming from an investor, they are mindful of the fact that Anthropic, one of the foundation models, could change the way they operate, and henceforth you're beholden to whatever decisions they make if you're building on top of them. So they're careful to always know how to be able to switch quickly should the foundation change.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good segue into what you do.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I could tell a little bit more about what we do, or
Please.
Start telling about the exact problem. This is a very, very important problem for enterprises. I mean, just the fact that they need to rely for running the business effectively on such a critical technology that they don't own, but they're renting from somebody else. And that somebody else can change the terms in any way. And when I say terms, I mean the terms of use, the weights, the way everything works, the way it's accessed. It's a major risk. And by the way, as you said, that's a very great segue. That was one of the reasons why we started with Oumi. As a bit of context, I used to be at Google. I was running science and engineering for all the natural language services at Google Cloud. One of the most notable products, as I tend to say, is what became to be known as Gemini. Started this effort a couple of months before ChatGPT came out. And I got to orchestrate and run the virtual team until this effort launched to GA, and then it moved to DeepMind, got rebranded as from Palm to Gemini. This frontier model, especially Gemini, feels very, very close to me in many ways. That being said, the thing that was already becoming very clear to me was that it would not be the right solution for most enterprises. Many reasons why. We already touched on the first one, which is control of your key technology. If you're relying on a technology that's so critical for your success, you can't be renting it from somebody else because they can take it away from you for geopolitical reasons, what happened with Fable, because they decide to start competing with you. Let's say, for example, in drug discovery, financial services, and hey, suddenly you can't use this model anymore, or maybe they give you a lower grade model, for you, and they keep the premium one when people go and access their service directly, or because they're just updating the model, right? And this is happening to a bank we're working with, and they say they're updating the model. It is now the new GPT mini is going to be twice as expensive, not any better, and we have to do the work to adapt to the new model. And last but not least is private security, right? I mean, you don't control where the model is deployed, how long the data is retained when it's being sent to the model, all of this. And this is just the problem of having control of this key technology. There's two more problems, which the other one is, if you want to have higher quality and differentiate compared to everybody else, you can't be prompting the same model. And the second one is, maybe the third one, since we started in that order, is economics. If you're using a large generic model that is trained to do 1,000 things, when you only care about one, guess what? I mean, you're paying the cost. What is becoming increasingly known to many enterprise leaders is that they could be building specialized models that are 5, 10 times, or even 100 times cheaper and as good because they only do one thing that you care about. So anyway, it's all these three reasons: control of key technology, quality differentiation, economics, that I was realizing even 2 years ago that as it happened with pretty much any other technology, not just AI, operating systems, database, and pretty much almost anything in life, when you care about quality, when you care about economics, about control over that important tool that you use, you don't rent a generic tool from somebody else. You build a specialized one that you can fully own and control.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same for anything you do. Technology, non-technology, even more true for AI, because even more technology can be adapted to a use case so well, it's AI. So even more true for AI, but true for pretty much anything that we do. So that was the key realization about 2.5 years ago. And now, and increasingly more people may say, it was obvious, right? I mean, in retrospect, it's becoming more and more obvious now as we look back. But highly contrarian 2.5 years ago, because most executives thought that I just need to use the model that OpenAI gives me, otherwise I'm going to fall behind. Mm-hmm. Increasingly, they are realizing that this was a mistake, and they're going to fall behind if they stick to these models and they don't innovate on their own. Anyway, that was the key realization. And long story short, we built Oumi to solve this exact problem, to help enterprise move from generic intelligence that they're renting to specialized intelligence that they can own. Mm-hmm. That was the goal of Oumi.
So Oumi doesn't simply replace Anthropic or one of these other, foundation models, meaning the enterprise isn't just switching over to you and then they're beholden to Oumi.
Yeah. Great question. Slightly pointed, but I like it. So first of all, I tell people, we shouldn't look at this as a, false dichotomy. I think both generic AI, general frontier models, and specialized AI is going to be useful. Usually what I advise to C-level execs and other senior leaders I talk to is that for whatever is generic in your organization, just use this generic solution or not critical in terms of cost. For example, coding. You're a bank, you're writing code, so does everybody else in the industry. Just use Cloud Code, Cursor, or any of these systems. Actually, they're even heavily optimized for coding use cases. Don't try to build your own, just a waste of your time. But if you're a bank and you are working on risk analysis, mortgage processing, and things like that, you are supposed to be the expert, and you are the expert. And that's actually your proprietary IP, your institutional knowledge. You should be building and owning and compounding that intelligence for yourself. By the way, it's also what Satya said a month or 2.5 ago in his post about how the frontier without an ecosystem is not stable. He pretty much, the lesson for enterprise was build on, compound your intelligence. Again, but what I tell people is not for everything. It's not matter about owning the most AI, own the one that differentiates you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one you should own. Okay, now about being beholden to Oumi. And I like this because even though I said it could be a little bit pointed question, it's a very important one. The goal when we built Oumi was also exactly what Satya said in his post a month and a half ago, which was you need to build on and compound your intelligence, but do it within a platform that you have full flexibility, full control, and you don't get locked in. And that was our thesis also 2 years ago. And that's why we built Oumi on an open source foundation. Actually, I think we do that almost to the maximum amount possible. We tell people if you use the enterprise platform that sits on top of the open source, what's already well established, it's offered in GitHub, you can own not only the weights of your model, not only the training or test data that we build for you, but even the recipes. Because when somebody uses Oumi, it tells you all the steps of how you can build your AI model, how you evaluate, how it's curating the data for you, how it's training. And you can see the specs, we call it recipes of all those steps, inspect them, download them, and fully own them. So you own the data, so you own the weights, the data, and even how every step was executed. You can download it and run it against an Apache 2 open source, a very powerful library that we have in GitHub. So which means that if you don't like us, you can take all your assets and we will give you the code to be able to execute them.
Mm-hmm. It would be pretty onerous by that point to actually detach from Oumi.
It could be, or at least the way I would say it is, I think the biggest value that we give on the enterprise platform is that the open source is very powerful. It tells you how, given a recipe, if you build it manually, you can train, you can evaluate, you can synthesize data. It makes it very, very easy for you once you have those recipes. The thing that we do in the enterprise platform is that we not only manage all these resources, your models, your data, we give you compute if you don't have it, but the most important one is that we automate for you all those steps of the development. So I tell people it's like the Cloud Code equivalent of AI development, which, if you ask me, I think it's the only reasonable way in which we're going to be building AI in 6 months or a year. We're going to be looking back and say, hey, it was obvious, right? Why it takes so long for somebody like Oumi to build this? But anyway, back to your question, I think the thing they would miss if they were to leave Oumi is the automation. But they could still take all those assets and execute them. It's just if they want to keep innovating, yeah, they won't have the automation. And that thing, hopefully they would miss because I think we're doing a good job at it. So
Curious, like these days, there's a lot of being said about branding of AI, meaning Anthropic has done a good job of being humanity forward, whereas maybe OpenAI, maybe to the average observer, a little bit skeptical on their
yeah.
motivations. And it seems like you're leaning towards more of the humanity side. So, how do you ensure that you don't take advantage of this building customer base that's building on top of Umi?
Yeah, yeah. First off, definitely there was that perception about Anthropic versus OpenAI. Even for Anthropic, it's starting to shift given everything that is happening lately. Now, as for Umi, we definitely had a lot of vision about doing what's right for the world. I mean, we're a PCB, public benefit corporation, actually, but so is Anthropic. And the first reason why we have this mission was, and why we started from open source, is because we believe that the safest way to build these technologies to do it openly, not in a couple of frontier labs that say, no, this is too dangerous for everybody else, we should only control it. And we think should be developed more transparently, more openly, with a collective IQ of the whole community, not just a couple thousand people that are operating inside a silo and they're usually serving their own wallets, not the public benefit. And that's why we started even with the open source platform, to make it as a tool that was for deep AI engineers and researchers in academia that want. The platform makes it easier for them to do the research and contribute to make the frontier better. Now, even when it comes to the enterprise part of Umi, because at the end, we are still an enterprise, a C corp. We still need to make profit. But the way and our view about this was that there's a lot of competition in AI. And I'll be very candid here, not just for the goodness of our hearts, because I think there was a fair element of that, but even as a viable strategy. I think the most viable strategy when there was so much competition is to just do the right thing. Do what is the right thing for enterprises. And I think in extension, if you do what is right for every single enterprise, almost becomes by extension what is good for humanity, which is give them the ability to build and own their own intelligence. Don't make them be beholden to you or a couple other AI oligarchs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the reason now we have started working with some of the largest organizations. The thing they like about us is to say, not only you make it much more accessible for us to build our own AI, but they like the fact of the full AI sovereignty, that, hey, I can take my assets anytime, executable against an open source. I don't get locked in. Yeah, and definitely, it would be hard for them to find something like Umi to keep innovating the same way, but at least they can take everything and leave if they want to.
Mm-hmm. Are you focused mostly on the larger enterprises?
Yeah, great question. Mostly when we engage deeply, it has been mostly larger organizations. There's some very small ones that often reach out to us. They ask us questions and we happily engage and help answer. But some of the larger engagements that we have and paid contracts, yes, to give you an idea, with some of the largest international banks and other verticals as well. But yeah, we've gone a little bit deeper into financial services I think what we do and the way we do it appeals to any industry, but even more to regulated industries, where the idea of AI sovereignty, control, being able to deploy your AI locally, and control it, it's an even stronger requirement. But increasingly, this is not becoming a requirement like that gets imposed from organization. It becomes something that more and more C-level execs realize that they need to have for their organization. Again, it's a key technology. They need to control it better.
Mm-hmm. And how does the economic arrangement work with your clients? Is it based on usage?
Yes. So it's a mixture of two things. If they go and use Umi on their own, somebody can go to platform.umi.ai and sign up. It's mostly consumption-based, as you mentioned, based on usage. The more you do the different operations of evaluating, synthesizing, or training models, you get charged depending on the operation per token or per GPU hours. Now, if we engage a little bit deeper with some enterprise and they need a little bit more help for us, then we establish an enterprise contract depending on how many people want access to the platform and things like that. But I think the thing actually I missed was even to maybe describe very briefly, if you want, how exactly does Umi work, right? How do we do what we do?
Right.
I mentioned before the equivalent of somebody were to imagine if you were to do cloud code for AI development, what would that look like? So the way it works is that somebody can come even with a prompt, and it could be the prompt that you're using now with GPT, Cloud, or Gemini to describe what you want to do for you, and say, come to me and say, build a model that does X. You put there that prompt you're using currently, and it will automate for you all the steps. It will tell you, first of all, to establish what success looks like. Let's figure out what is the right way to evaluate that model. and tell you what are the right evaluation metrics, build evaluations for you. If you don't have test sets to evaluate the model you're starting with. And sometimes if you ask it, you can also compare with you side by side with closed models like OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, and so on. They will evaluate the models for you and not just give you the metrics, but even do a deep evaluation to tell you here exactly where that model is falling short. Let's say 5 or 10, whatever, as many most common failure cases, which is something that normally for AI engineers, they will have to spend a lot of effort to try to distill what's happening. And then it uses those insights to curate for you high quality training data to build for you a specialized model that is the best possible on your task, tells you how to train, what algorithm, what hyperparameters, trains it, and evaluates for you to see how well you're doing compared to where you started or compared to the closed models. And then it does the same process again. It tells you, hey, I can keep iterating, building more data for you to fix the new problems of the trained model. And then synthesize data, train it, evaluate, and then repeat and repeat and repeat until you get the best model possible. This is the work that an AI engineer takes. That's why it takes all these steps multiple times. That's why it often takes weeks and months. Mm-hmm. Literally, no exaggeration. Somebody can come in Oumi and do it in minutes of their human time, hours on the clock, because some operations take dozens of minutes, if not hours, but minutes of their time. Again, I tell people the only way why this works so well is because, again, we use AI to automate the development of AI. And if anybody by any means has any doubts about this, about, hey, how well does that work? I'll just say this. Automating AI development with AI, it's way easier than automating software development. It's a much more tedious task, much amenable to AI automation. And as I mentioned also briefly, I think in 6 months to a year from now, we're going to be looking back and saying, why didn't we do that earlier? Why did we AI engineers look how we can automate everything else except for the work that we do ourselves? So.
That's a very good description. I'd like to switch gears a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah. Originally, I'm from Greece, where I grew up, did my undergrad. And then, while I don't like to often publicly admit it, I came to do a PhD in the US without really knowing what a PhD is, but it was the easiest way to come with a paid scholarship and study in the US and experience something different. But I got to like the process of doing research, and I had some wonderful advisors that helped me make sure that I get a very rich experience during my PhD. Spent my first 3 years at Princeton, last two at MIT. I was doing summer internships pretty much every summer at Google, Microsoft Research, or elsewhere, or Singapore. And let's see, then I worked at Microsoft for almost 5 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. And then I was at Meta, then at the startup, then at Google for almost 4 years, and now to Oumi.
Do you find the company founding and building process fairly intuitive?
I say building a company is challenging, but at the same time, I would say it's the most rewarding job I've had in my career. And I say that even when taking into account what was happening with Palm, right, the first version of Gemini. I started this effort again a couple of months before the GPT came out. I started organizing a very large virtual team within Google that became a couple hundred people. And ChatGPT came out in end of November, I think, of 2022. But even a month or two later, when it's like December or January of 2023, it was becoming clear that this is the most important effort across Google. And I'm leading the effort to productionize Google Cloud Palm, like the main vehicle to bring this out, and trying to orchestrate all these like hundreds of people to make everything so lands on the product, from the pre-training, the post-training, the GPUs versus TPUs, the pricing, developer APIs, everything that we needed was a huge effort. And that being said, I still feel that building a company felt more rewarding, from choosing fully the team that you want to, I don't know, down to the company name. Yeah. And getting to build the thing that you really felt was the right solution to build.
I believe you're backed by Venrock and Obvious Ventures. What's the plan for, expanding? I mean, are you going to bring in more capital? Or are you kind of going out to kind of the likely suspects in the investor world?
I think we would definitely be considering this sometime soon. Yeah, it's still TBD. No details, unfortunately, to share here. But things are moving fast in the industry. The market is quickly catching up to our thesis. The difference I've seen in anything from enterprise leaders that we talk to even sometimes VCs that reach out to and say, hey, we are seeing the market moving to this direction. Can we chat? So yeah, one way or another, we definitely want to keep growing faster as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have two final questions. We're entering into the tail end. Before I ask those, I had one other question. I live in Princeton. I know a lot of Princeton folks. Maybe just like one aspect about your program there, your key takeaway, key insight from spending time at Princeton University.
I have to say, it was a wonderful school, and I have two really wonderful advisors, Professor Margaret Martonossi and Liz Champé. Liz Champé moved later to MIT, but she was faculty at Princeton. It was a really wonderful school. And especially for me, coming from a Greek university, I don't dare to compare the two. I remember I was telling another fellow Greek student there that the office chairs that we had at the computer lab at Princeton were more expensive than the computers in Greece. But it's not just infrastructure, right? I would say the main thing was the people and the culture of the university was great. I mean, faculty, everything, research was just exceptional. And as you know, Princeton is a nice, beautiful little town.
Yep.
Sometimes as a student, you wish a town that has a little bit more activity to it, but it's still a very pretty town. Yeah.
Activity in terms of social activity or in terms of tech entrepreneurship?
Actually, both. Actually, I would say both maybe. Definitely in terms of the social aspect. I remember there was, I don't know, very few things right on Nassau Street that you can go to. I mean, enough to get by, right? Again, it's a very, very beautiful town. But I remember people saying, you should go to New York, but it was still an hour away. And in terms of the tech scene, I think if anything, that was the biggest thing. If you say, okay, from a professional level, what is the thing you wish Princeton had a little bit more? I would say, more on the entrepreneurship side.
Right.
I think a stronger element of that could help because, there's a lot of startup people that go to Princeton. And it's something that I wish, was perhaps a little bit stronger. I know there were some programs actually as I was the last few years. I don't remember the names, unfortunately, that they were established. But I would say definitely something that I think would be good to have a stronger element. Yeah.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
If I were to pick one, I have to pick the one that perhaps was the linchpin for the biggest shift in my career and mentality was my teacher when I was 10 years old, where I remember then at the time we had some, some financial struggles. And he mentioned at the beginning of the school year that, hey, if you study hard, you can change your stars. And I was not a great student, except for math. I didn't have to study. I was doing well, but everything else, I was just not good. And by the end of the school year, he's like, hey, look at Manos. I mean, you can all become a great student if you decide to. And it was because of him. It was the combination of that thing that he said and how he would encourage us to, hey, you can improve your future if you study more. Also with what was happening personally, that I think became the biggest change. That was one. And then if you were to allow me to choose a second one, I would say my father, because I was wanting to be able to be as good and as capable as he was. And
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a hobby, something that you enjoy doing outside of work?
Oh, man. So I tell people I have only two hobbies. One is building Oumi. The second one is my kids. And I would not change that hobby by any means. I do try to exercise as much as I can, but I think between building Oumi and my kids, that's the best hobby.
Wonderful. Well, Manos, I want to thank you again. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.